If you are watching this, kindly subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. And I hope that you're safe wherever you are. When I was 8 years old, my parents forgot to pick me up from school. Again, I sat on the front steps for 3 hours until my teacher finally drove me home, finding my mother on the couch, watching TV, and my father in the garage tinkering with another broken project. That's when I learned the most important lesson of my childhood. If I wanted something done right, I had to do it myself. My name is Sarah, and I became my family's designated problem solver before I even understood what that meant. While other kids worried about homework and friends, I worried about whether our electricity would get shut off. I learned to read bills before I learned to read chapter books. I memorized our family budget, while my siblings memorized cartoon characters. My parents, Linda and David, lived in a constant state of financial chaos. My mother spent money we didn't have on things we didn't need, always saying, "We deserve nice things too." My father chased get-rich-quick schemes like a gambling addict, convinced the next opportunity would solve everything. Meanwhile, their 3 children learned to navigate the wreckage. My older brother Marcus became the family charmer, smooth-talking his way out of every responsibility. My younger sister Kelly developed strategic helplessness, playing dumb whenever real work needed doing. And me? I became the fixer, the responsible one, the daughter who could be counted on when everyone else failed. By 12, I was managing our household finances better than my parents. I created spreadsheets tracking bills and due dates. I negotiated payment plans with utility companies. I babysat neighbors' kids to earn grocery money when my parents spent our food budget on lottery tickets and takeout. "Sarah will handle it" became my family's favorite phrase. Teacher conference. Sarah will go. Broken appliance. Sarah will research repair options. Medical appointment scheduling. Sarah's got it covered. I didn't realize until much later that this wasn't normal. I thought every family had one person who kept everything from falling apart. The pattern intensified through high school. While my siblings partied and pursued their interests, I worked 3 jobs to save for college. My parents never questioned where I found time for everything. They were too relieved someone was handling their responsibilities. When I graduated valedictorian with a full scholarship, they threw me a party they couldn't afford, then asked if I could help with the credit card bills the party created. College offered temporary escape, but even from 3 states away, the phone calls found me. "Sarah, honey, we have a little situation," my mother would begin, her voice sugary sweet. The situations were never little: missed mortgage payments, repo threats, medical bills, utility disconnections. Each crisis required immediate attention and usually money I barely had as a student. Have you ever been your family's designated problem solver? The one everyone turns to when things go wrong, but who gets forgotten when things go right? My siblings learned this system worked perfectly for them. Marcus could focus on his band and dating without worrying about adult responsibilities. Kelly could pursue her art and social life knowing someone else handled the boring stuff. They saw my constant stress and sacrifice as proof that I enjoyed being in control, rather than recognizing I was drowning under expectations I never asked for. The real tragedy was how proud my parents acted. "Sarah's so responsible," they'd brag to neighbors. "She's our little organizer." They framed my premature adulthood as a personality trait, rather than a survival mechanism I developed because their chaos forced me to grow up too fast. But everything changed when I landed my dream job after graduation. 6 figures, benefits, respect, success. I thought finally having money would solve our family's problems. I thought they'd be proud and maybe start handling their own lives. I had no idea my success would make everything so much worse. When I got my first real paycheck, I felt like I'd won the lottery. After years of scraping by, having actual money felt surreal. I paid off my student loans in full, bought myself a decent car, and set up a savings account. For the first time in my life, I could breathe financially. That breathing room lasted exactly 2 weeks. "Sarah, sweetie, congratulations on the new job." My mother called, her voice unusually bright. "Your father and I are so proud. We always knew you'd be successful." The praise felt warm until she continued. "Now that you're doing so well, maybe you could help us catch up on a few things. Nothing major, just some bills that got behind while you were in school." The few things totaled $8,000. Rent, car payments, credit cards, medical bills, and mountain of debt they'd accumulated while I was studying 18 hours a day to build a better life. When I hesitated, my mother's voice shifted. Of course, if you're too busy with your fancy new life to help the family who sacrificed everything for you. I transferred the money that afternoon. This became the pattern. Every success I achieved triggered a corresponding family crisis that required my immediate financial intervention. Got a promotion? Marcus needed bail money after a DUI. Received a bonus? Kelly's art supplies for her breakthrough project cost $3,000. Bought myself something nice. My parents needed help with an unexpected emergency. The emergencies were never unexpected. They were the predictable results of consistently poor decisions, but my family treated each crisis like an act of God rather than consequences of their choices. My mother became particularly skilled at emotional manipulation, weaving guilt and obligation into every request. I worry about your father's blood pressure, she'd say when asking for money. These financial stresses are killing him. I don't know what we'll do if something happens to him. When I pointed out that getting a budget might help, she'd act hurt. We're not children, Sarah. We know how to manage money. We just hit a rough patch. The rough patch lasted 3 years and counting. Marcus developed his own approach, combining urgency with false promises. Sis, I'm in a major bind. If I don't get $1,500 by tomorrow, they'll repossess my car. But don't worry. This job interview next week is practically guaranteed. I'll pay you back with interest. The job interviews never panned out, but new emergencies always did. Kelly preferred the victim approach, tears flowing as she explained how unfair life was. Everyone else gets support for their dreams. Mom and Dad believe in me, but they can't help financially. If my own sister won't invest in my future, who will? Her dreams changed monthly: photography, jewelry making, organic skincare, but the funding requests remained constant. My father took the passive-aggressive route, never asking directly but mentioning problems that only money could solve. The car's making that noise again. Probably the transmission. Guess we'll have to figure something out. He'd sigh heavily, then change the subject, knowing I'd offer to help, rather than let him stress about it. The most insidious part was how they reframed my financial support. Instead of acknowledging my sacrifices, they treated my money as a family resource they had natural rights to access. Sarah makes good money now, they'd tell extended family, as if my salary belonged to all of us. When I suggested they might try budgeting or financial planning, they acted like I was being controlling and condescending. This true story of family manipulation was slowly destroying my mental health, but I couldn't see it clearly yet. I was too deep in the dysfunction, too trained from childhood to fix everyone's problems. I thought if I just gave enough, they'd eventually become self-sufficient. I thought my love needed to be proven through financial sacrifice. But family drama has a way of escalating. Just when I thought I understood the scope of their expectations, I discovered they were having meetings about me, planning sessions where they discussed my money and my obligations, conversations where they strategized about how to maximize their access to my income. The meetings I wasn't invited to, but that would change my life forever. My Uncle Robert was my father's older brother, and the only adult in my extended family who seemed to have his life together. He'd built a successful construction business, raised 3 independent kids, and maintained the kind of stable marriage my parents clearly envied. More importantly, he saw through their BS in ways I was still learning to. Sarah, he said during a family barbecue, pulling me aside while my parents argued about whose turn it was to buy groceries. Can I ask you something? How much are you giving them monthly? I deflected, embarrassed by the truth. Just helping out here and there. Family stuff, you know. His expression grew serious. Here and there shouldn't require you to drive a 10-year-old Honda, while your brother has a BMW, and your sister gets her nails done weekly. He wasn't wrong, but admitting it felt like betraying my family's trust. What I didn't know was that Uncle Robert had been watching this family drama unfold with increasing concern. He'd seen my stress levels rise with my income. He'd noticed how family gatherings always ended with hushed conversations between my parents and siblings, while I sat alone, usually writing checks or making transfers on my phone. 3 months later, he called me with news that would shatter my understanding of my family's love. Sarah, I need to tell you something, and you're not going to like it. His voice was tense, angry in a way I'd rarely heard. I was at your parents' house yesterday to help your dad with some yard work. They didn't know I was still there when they had their meeting. What meeting? I asked, though dread was already pooling in my stomach. Your mother called it the Sarah strategy session. They had notebooks, Sarah. Actual notebooks with your income information, your expenses, calculations about how much they could reasonably ask for without making you suspicious. His voice cracked slightly. They're treating you like a business plan, not a daughter. The words hit like physical blows. That can't be right. They wouldn't. Marcus brought a list of things he wanted to buy. Kelly had research about art programs she wanted you to fund. Your parents were discussing a refinance that would require your signature as a guarantor. Uncle Robert's breathing was heavy. They're planning your financial future without you, honey. And when your mom mentioned you seem stressed lately, your dad said, she'll be fine. Sarah likes feeling needed. I sank into my kitchen chair, my legs suddenly unable to support my weight. The family I'd sacrificed everything for was literally meeting to strategize about my money, about me, like I was a resource to be managed rather than a person to be loved. There's more, Uncle Robert continued reluctantly. They're concerned you might start saying no eventually, so they're developing backup plans. Your mother suggested guilt might not be enough long-term. They're considering having Kelly move in with you temporarily to make it harder for you to refuse requests. The room seemed to spin. Every conversation with my family replayed in my mind with this new context. Every tearful phone call, every urgent emergency, every expression of gratitude followed immediately by the next request. It had all been calculated, planned, strategized. Have you ever discovered that people you trusted were systematically manipulating you? That feeling of realizing everything you thought was real was actually carefully constructed theater. Uncle Robert, I whispered, what should I do? First, you need to understand this isn't love, Sarah. Love doesn't require detailed planning sessions about how to extract maximum benefit from someone. Love doesn't involve notebooks tracking your financial capacity. His voice grew firmer. Second, you need to know I'm done enabling this. I'm done pretending this is normal family support. What do you mean? I mean I'm packing my toolkit and leaving their house right now. I'm not going to help your father with projects while he's having strategy meetings about exploiting my niece. I could hear movement in the background, items being collected. And Sarah, I found something else while I was packing up, something you need to see. My heart stopped. What? I'll call you tonight after I get home. But Sarah, whatever they say to you in the next few days, whatever crisis suddenly emerges, whatever emergency requires immediate attention, promise me you won't respond until we talk. The line went quiet, except for the sound of Uncle Robert moving around, gathering his things, preparing to leave the house where my family was probably still meeting about me. Uncle Robert, what did you find? His voice was grim when he answered. Evidence that this goes deeper than strategy meetings. Evidence that might be the key to setting you free. That Tuesday started like any other. I was reviewing client portfolios when my phone buzzed with a notification from our family group chat. The message was short, brutal, and delivered without warning. We need space from you. Please don't reach out anymore. At all. I stared at the screen, certain I'd misread something. The words seemed to rearrange themselves as I blinked, but they remained unchanged. 13 words that effectively exiled me from my own family. No explanation, no context, just a cold, calculated dismissal. My hands began shaking as I tried calling my mother, voicemail. My father, voicemail. Marcus, straight to voicemail. Kelly didn't even have her voicemail set up. It was as if they'd coordinated a complete communication blackout. The office around me continued its normal rhythm while my world crumbled. Coworkers chatted by the coffee machine. Phones rang with business calls. Life proceeded normally while I sat frozen, staring at a text message that changed everything. My assistant knocked on my door. Sarah, your 2 o'clock is here. I managed to reschedule, claiming sudden illness. It wasn't far from the truth. I felt physically sick, my stomach churning with betrayal and confusion. The drive home was a blur. I kept replaying recent conversations, searching for signs I'd missed. Had I said something offensive, done something wrong? The text offered no clues, just a cold instruction to disappear from their lives. At home, I called Uncle Robert immediately. He answered on the first ring. Sarah, he said, his voice heavy with exhaustion and anger. I was about to call you. Did you know about this? Did you know they were planning to cut me off? My voice cracked as the words tumbled out. Sit down, he said gently. We need to talk. I collapsed onto my couch, my legs finally giving out completely. Uncle Robert, what's happening? Why would they do this after everything I've done for them? A long sigh came through the phone. Because you're not playing by their rules anymore, honey. Remember that evidence I mentioned? The thing I found while packing up at their house? Yes, what was it? Financial documents, Sarah. Spreadsheets tracking not just what they've taken from you, but what they plan to take. Applications for credit cards in your name. Loan documents with forged signatures. This Reddit revenge story was already in motion before you even knew you were the target. The room seemed to tilt sideways. What do you mean, forged signatures? I found copies of loan applications where your signature was clearly traced. Credit card agreements you never signed. They've been using your identity for months, maybe longer. His voice grew harder, and when I confronted them about it this morning, they didn't deny it. They said family helps family, and you should be grateful they only took what they needed. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. So the text message is their way of controlling the narrative. They're cutting you off before you can discover the full extent of what they've done, making it look like you're the problem, not them. Uncle Robert's voice grew firmer. Sarah, this isn't just financial manipulation anymore. This is fraud, identity theft, criminal behavior disguised as family need. The implications crashed over me in waves. Every unexplained credit score fluctuation. Every strange piece of mail quickly claimed by my parents. Every time they'd asked for my social security number for tax purposes or family planning. It had all been preparation for systematic financial abuse. How long? I whispered. Based on what I found. At least 2 years. Maybe longer. Uncle Robert's voice was gentle but firm. They've been planning this whole scenario, Sarah. The strategy meetings weren't just about asking for money. They were about taking it. I closed my eyes, memories flooding back with new context. The times my mother had offered to help with my mail when I visited. My father's insistence on keeping family financial records together. Marcus asking detailed questions about my work benefits. Kelly's casual inquiries about my savings goals. They hadn't been showing interest in my life. They'd been gathering intelligence. Uncle Robert, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. You said you packed something. What exactly do you have? Everything, he said grimly. Bank statements, credit applications, planning documents, email printouts, phone records. 3 years of evidence showing systematic financial fraud committed against you by your own family. The weight of this revelation settled over me. My family hadn't just been manipulating me emotionally. They'd been robbing me legally. The text message wasn't abandonment. It was a calculated move to prevent me from discovering their crimes. They think I'll come crawling back, I realized aloud. They think I need them more than they need me. That's exactly what they think. I heard your mother say you'd apologize within a week and things would go back to normal. Uncle Robert's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. They have no idea what they've just unleashed. As the truth crystallized, so did my resolve. This wasn't just about setting boundaries anymore. This was about justice. This was about protecting myself from people who saw me as a resource to be exploited rather than a person to be loved. Uncle Robert, I said, my voice growing stronger, I need to see everything you found. Tonight, I was hoping you'd say that. I'm already on my way over with the evidence box. Evidence box. The words carried weight and promise. For the first time since receiving that devastating text, I felt something other than pain. I felt power. Uncle Robert arrived at my apartment carrying a banker's box that looked innocuous enough to contain old tax returns or family photos. Instead, it held 3 years of systematic betrayal documented in meticulous detail. I need you to prepare yourself, he said, setting the box on my kitchen table. What you're about to see is going to hurt, but it's also going to set you free. The first folder contained credit card applications. 7 of them, all bearing my forged signature. The handwriting was clearly my mother's attempt to mimic my penmanship, complete with practice sheets where she'd traced my signature dozens of times to perfect the forgery. My God, I whispered, examining the evidence. This is premeditated identity theft. It gets worse, Uncle Robert said grimly, handing me the second folder. Look at the spending patterns. The credit card statements showed purchases that made my blood boil. While I'd been eating ramen and driving my old Honda to save money for their emergencies, they'd been using my stolen credit to fund luxury purchases. Designer handbags for my mother, gaming equipment for Marcus, art supplies and spa treatments for Kelly, a new watch for my father. They'd been living lavishly on my stolen credit while manipulating me into giving them more money directly. The third folder contained loan documents, personal loans, home equity lines, even a car loan, all with my forged signature as guarantor. The total amount was staggering, over $60,000 in fraudulent debt attached to my name and credit. Sarah, Uncle Robert said softly, they destroyed your credit score while you were building your career. Every late payment, every default, it's all reporting against you. I pulled my credit report on my phone, seeing my score for the first time in months. It had dropped nearly 200 points, due to accounts I'd never opened, payments I'd never missed, debt I'd never agreed to take on. The fourth folder was the most devastating. Their planning documents, spreadsheets tracking my income, my expenses, my savings patterns, strategic timelines for major requests, backup manipulation tactics for different scenarios. They'd analyzed me like a business acquisition, identifying my emotional triggers and financial vulnerabilities. One document was titled Sarah Management Protocol. It detailed how to maximize extraction while minimizing suspicion, how to space requests to avoid overwhelming me, how to use guilt, obligation, and family loyalty as leverage points, how to isolate me from outside perspectives that might make me question their behavior. Have you ever seen your own emotional manipulation mapped out in a spreadsheet? It's a special kind of violation that goes beyond simple betrayal. But the fifth folder contained the evidence that transformed my pain into determination, their exit strategy. Documents showing they'd already planned to cut me off if I ever became difficult to manage. Alternative funding sources they'd researched. Plans to claim I'd become selfish and controlling to justify discarding me once my usefulness ended. The text message hadn't been impulsive, it had been their planned final move in a 3-year financial exploitation scheme. They never loved me, I said, the words feeling strange and hollow. This whole time, I was just a resource to be managed. That's not entirely true, Uncle Robert said carefully. I think they loved the version of you that served their needs, but they never loved you as a complete person with your own needs and boundaries. I sat back, overwhelmed by the scope of their deception. This wasn't just family dysfunction, it was organized crime committed by people who'd raised me to trust them unconditionally. What do I do with this? I asked, gesturing at the evidence spread across my table. That depends on what you want, Sarah. You have enough evidence here to press criminal charges against all of them. Identity theft, fraud, forgery. These are serious felonies. Uncle Robert's voice was steady but supportive. Or you can use this information to protect yourself and rebuild your life without them. I thought about my siblings in handcuffs, my parents facing criminal charges, the family drama that would explode across social media and through our extended family. Part of me wanted them to face consequences for what they'd done. But a bigger part of me just wanted to be free. I want to use this to reclaim my life, I decided. But I also want them to understand that their behavior has consequences. Real ones. Uncle Robert smiled for the first time since arriving. I was hoping you'd say that. Because I have some ideas about how we can accomplish both goals. He pulled out one final folder, this one containing research he'd done on financial recovery, identity protection, and legal remedies for family fraud victims. He'd spent his day not just gathering evidence, but developing a comprehensive plan for my liberation. First, we secure your finances and credit. Then we document everything for law enforcement, not necessarily to prosecute, but to have that option. Finally, we make it clear to your family that their free ride is over permanently. Looking at the evidence spread across my table, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, hope mixed with righteous anger. They'd counted on my love and loyalty to protect them from consequences. They'd assumed I'd never fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they'd been. The next morning, I began the most empowering day of my adult life. Armed with Uncle Robert's evidence and a detailed action plan, I set out to reclaim everything my family had stolen from me. Financially, emotionally, and spiritually. My first call was to my bank's fraud department. Within an hour, I'd frozen my accounts, changed all security information, and initiated disputes for every unauthorized transaction. The representative was shocked by the scope of the identity theft. "Ma'am, this level of systematic fraud is unusual for family cases," she said. "Most relatives take smaller amounts or make isolated transactions. This looks like organized financial abuse." The phrase hit me, organized financial abuse. That's exactly what this true story represented. Not family helping family, but systematic exploitation disguised as love. Next, I called the credit bureaus. Each fraudulent account was flagged, each forged application disputed. The process would take months, but my credit would eventually recover. More importantly, any future attempts to use my identity would be immediately flagged. By noon, I'd contacted an attorney specializing in identity theft cases. She reviewed Uncle Robert's evidence with professional amazement. "This is some of the most thorough documentation I've seen," she said. "Your uncle did excellent work. You have multiple options here, from civil recovery to criminal prosecution." I chose a middle path: formal documentation of all crimes without immediate prosecution, creating a legal record that could be activated if my family continued their fraudulent activities. The most satisfying call was to my credit card companies. Each fraudulent account was closed immediately, with all associated debt transferred off my credit report. Watching thousands of dollars in stolen debt disappear from my financial picture felt like breathing clean air for the first time in years. But the real power move came that afternoon. I drafted a message to send to my entire family, not to the group chat they'd used to exile me, but to each person individually. The message was simple, direct, and backed by irrefutable evidence. I know about the forged signatures, the unauthorized credit accounts, and the 3 years of systematic identity theft. I have documentation of every fraudulent transaction, every planning meeting, and every criminal act committed using my personal information. All stolen accounts have been closed and reported as fraud. All automatic payments from my accounts to yours have been terminated. All future attempts to use my identity will trigger immediate legal action. You wanted space from me, you now have it permanently. I attached copies of the most damaging evidence to each message, enough to make it clear I knew everything, not enough to show the full scope of what Uncle Robert had uncovered. The responses came within minutes. My mother called 12 times in succession, then sent a flurry of texts ranging from denial to panic. "Sweetie, there must be some mistake. We just needed help," and thought. "Please call me back immediately." My father's response was pure anger. "How dare you accuse us of criminal activity? After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Family loyalty means nothing to you anymore." Marcus tried bargaining. "Look, sis, maybe things got a little complicated with the paperwork, but it's not like we were stealing. We're family. Can't we work this out without involving lawyers and banks?" Kelly went straight to victimization. "I can't believe you're trying to destroy our family over money. I thought you loved us. I thought you wanted to help us succeed. Now you're acting like we're criminals." Their responses confirmed everything Uncle Robert had predicted. No genuine remorse, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just panic at being caught and anger at facing consequences. But the most revealing response came from my father 2 hours later. "Fine. If this is how you want to play it, don't expect us to welcome you back when you realize what you've lost. Family is forever, Sarah. Money isn't." The irony was breathtaking. After 3 years of treating me like a personal ATM, he was lecturing me about the importance of family over money. By evening, Uncle Robert called with updates from the family front lines. "Your parents called an emergency meeting," he reported. "They're in full damage control mode. Your mother is claiming they never meant to hurt you, just needed temporary help. Your father is insisting you're overreacting to standard family support. What about Marcus and Kelly? Marcus is panicking about his credit score if the car loan defaults. Kelly is more concerned about losing access to your funding for her projects." Uncle Robert's voice carried a note of dark satisfaction. None of them seemed to grasp that this isn't about specific transactions, it's about years of systematic abuse. That night, I celebrated my liberation with takeout from my favorite restaurant, a luxury I'd denied myself for months while funding my family's lifestyle. As I ate, I reviewed my finances without the constant drain of family emergencies. For the first time in 3 years, my bank account balance was growing instead of shrinking. My credit score would recover. My emotional energy was returning. The constant anxiety about the next family crisis was lifting. I was discovering what life felt like when I wasn't being systematically exploited by people who claimed to love me. The family drama was far from over, but the power dynamic had shifted permanently. They could no longer manipulate me because I finally understood their game. They could no longer steal from me because I'd secured every avenue of access. Most importantly, they could no longer pretend their behavior was motivated by love rather than greed. But my family wasn't going to accept this new reality without a fight. The next 2 weeks brought a masterclass in how people react when their exploitation tactics suddenly stop working. My family cycled through every stage of manipulation grief, each response more desperate than the last. Phase 1 was denial mixed with rage. My father showed up at my office building, demanding I stop this nonsense immediately, and threatening to call my boss about my unstable behavior. Security had to escort him out after he started shouting about ungrateful children in the lobby. Phase 2 brought fake emergencies designed to trigger my old rescue patterns. My mother claimed she was having chest pains and needed someone to drive her to the hospital. When I suggested she call an ambulance, she miraculously recovered, but accused me of not caring whether she lived or died. Marcus invented a story about losing his job and facing eviction within 24 hours. When I didn't respond, the eviction notice mysteriously disappeared, but he continued posting on social media about heartless family members who abandon you when you need them most. Phase 3 involved recruiting flying monkeys from our extended family. Aunts and cousins I barely knew started calling to tell me how worried they were about the misunderstanding between me and my parents. These conversations followed identical scripts, suggesting my family was coaching their approach. Family is the most important thing, my Aunt Patricia said during one such call. Whatever happened between you and your parents, surely it's not worth destroying relationships over. When I explained about the identity theft and fraud, she brushed it off. Oh honey, that sounds like a paperwork mix-up. Your parents would never intentionally hurt you, they love you so much. The gaslighting was intense, but Uncle Robert helped me stay grounded. This is exactly what abusers do when their victims start fighting back, he reminded me. They recruit supporters who don't know the full story to make you doubt your reality. Phase 4 brought attempted bargaining disguised as apologies. My mother left tearful voicemails acknowledging mistakes were made and promising better communication going forward. But her apologies always included conditions. I'm sorry if you felt hurt by our financial arrangements, but you have to understand how desperate we were, she said in one message. If you'll just come to dinner this Sunday, we can work everything out like a loving family should. The non-apology apologies were almost insulting. They acknowledged my feelings while denying their actions, promised change while refusing accountability, and demanded reconciliation while offering nothing real in return. But the most telling phase was watching the natural consequences of their financial irresponsibility finally catch up with them. Without my money cushioning their poor decisions, reality hit hard and fast. Their mortgage went into default after missing 3 payments. The bank initiated foreclosure proceedings, forcing them to list their house for sale in a panic. My mother's social media posts shifted from family drama complaints to desperate appeals for housing recommendations. Marcus lost his BMW when the loan I'd been unknowingly guaranteeing went into default. His carefully curated social media lifestyle collapsed overnight as he went from luxury car selfies to public transportation complaints. He was forced to move back in with our parents, adding stress to their already chaotic household. Kelly's art career fantasy crumbled without constant funding. Her Instagram aesthetic shifted from expensive art supplies and studio rentals to minimalist artist lifestyle posts featuring dollar store materials. She started working retail for the first time in her adult life, discovering that real jobs require showing up consistently and following instructions. The most dramatic change was in my parents' relationship. Without external financial pressure and my constant intervention, they were forced to confront decades of poor financial decisions and incompatible approaches to money management. Their arguments became legendary among the neighbors, who started avoiding our former family home. Uncle Robert reported that my father had finally taken a steady job for the first time in 5 years. The humiliation was devastating to his entrepreneurial self-image, but the steady paycheck was desperately needed. My mother began selling her designer handbags and jewelry online, the same luxury items she'd purchased with my stolen credit. The irony wasn't lost on me. She was liquidating the evidence of her fraud to pay for basic living expenses. Through it all, none of them took genuine responsibility for their actions. They blamed me for being vindictive, blamed the banks for being unreasonable, blamed the economy for being difficult, blamed everyone except themselves for the predictable consequences of their choices. This Reddit revenge story was writing itself, but I wasn't seeking revenge. I was simply allowing natural consequences to occur without my interference. The most surprising development came from Kelly, who called me directly for the first time since the cutoff. "Sarah," she said, her voice smaller than I'd ever heard it. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without hanging up." I agreed, curious about this departure from our family's established drama patterns. "I've been working retail for 6 weeks now, and I hate every minute of it, but I'm also proud of myself. For the first time in my life, I'm paying my own bills with money I earned myself." Her voice grew stronger. "I'm not calling to ask for money or to beg you to come back. I'm calling to say I think I understand why you left." This wasn't the conversation I'd expected from any family member, and it left me genuinely speechless. "Kelly," I finally said, "what are you saying exactly?" "I'm saying that working for my own money feels different than asking you for it. Better in some ways, even though it's harder." She paused. "I'm also saying that Mom and Dad are talking about more ways to get money, and some of their ideas scare me." My blood ran cold. "What kind of ideas?" "Ideas that might get them in real legal trouble. Ideas that would hurt you even more than they already have." Kelly's voice dropped to a whisper. "I think they're planning something big, Sarah, and I think you need to know about it. Have you ever received a warning from the last person you expected to show you loyalty?" The conversation that followed would change everything I thought I knew about my family's capacity for both destruction and redemption. Kelly's warning call came at midnight on a Thursday, her voice shaky with fear and determination. "They're meeting with someone tomorrow," she whispered, clearly hiding from our parents. "Someone who specializes in identity restoration fraud. They want to reopen accounts in your name using your childhood information that banks don't typically verify." My heart stopped. Even after everything, they were planning to escalate their criminal behavior rather than accept responsibility for their actions. "Kelly, are you sure about this?" I overheard Dad on the phone. He said something about birth certificates and social security records being easy to manipulate when you have family access. Her voice cracked. "Sarah, I can't be part of this anymore. What they did before was wrong, but this is serious criminal stuff." I immediately called Uncle Robert, who conferenced in my attorney. Within an hour we had a plan. Kelly agreed to document the meeting if possible, while I prepared to involve law enforcement if my family crossed this final line. The next evening, Kelly called with an update that stunned everyone. "The meeting happened, but it didn't go how they expected," she reported. "The guy they met with took one look at Uncle Robert's evidence file. Apparently Marcus had copies and told them they were already too exposed to law enforcement to attempt additional fraud. The identity theft specialist had essentially told my family they were already in too deep to dig deeper. Their existing crimes were well documented enough that any additional fraudulent activity would trigger automatic prosecution. This news should have deterred them, but instead it triggered my parents' most desperate manipulation attempt yet. They decided to force a family reconciliation by creating a medical emergency. My mother was hospitalized with a mysterious condition that required immediate family presence. The emergency room staff at 3 different hospitals had never heard of her when I called to check. She was staging a fake medical crisis to manipulate me into breaking no contact. But something had shifted in me over these months of separation. Instead of panicking and rushing to help, I felt disgusted by the depth of their manipulation. They were now faking medical emergencies to maintain access to my finances. I documented the fake hospital claims and added them to my evidence file. My attorney was impressed by their audacity and appalled by their methods. "Your family has escalated from financial fraud to healthcare fraud," she noted. "They're creating false emergencies that could interfere with real medical care if hospitals waste resources investigating their claims." The fake medical emergency backfired spectacularly when extended family members started showing up at hospitals looking for my mother only to discover no one by her name was admitted. The truth about her manipulation spread through our family network, damaging her credibility and creating the accountability I'd never been able to establish alone. But the most significant change was happening with my siblings. Kelly's awakening to our family's dysfunction had triggered something in Marcus as well. He called me 3 days after the fake emergency incident. I quit participating in their schemes, he said, without preamble. I got my own apartment, my own phone plan, my own car insurance. I'm done being part of whatever they're doing. Marcus working retail, paying his own bills, and maintaining his own adult responsibilities seemed impossible. But Kelly confirmed he was actually following through. He's miserable most of the time, she reported. But he's also more honest than I've ever seen him. Yesterday he admitted that living off your money made him feel worthless, even though he never wanted to acknowledge that before. Uncle Robert had moved from observer to active family member in my life, filling the supportive role I'd always hoped my parents would play. He helped me understand that healing from family trauma doesn't require reconciliation. It requires boundaries and self-respect. You gave them every opportunity to change their behavior, he reminded me during one of our weekly dinners. Their choices to escalate instead of improve tell you everything you need to know about their priorities. The most powerful change was internal. Therapy had helped me understand that my family's treatment of me wasn't a reflection of my needs, it was a reflection of their dysfunction. I learned that love doesn't require financial sacrifice, that family doesn't justify abuse, and that setting boundaries is an act of self-care, not selfishness. My career flourished without the constant stress of family financial emergencies. My savings grew steadily. My credit score recovered completely. My relationships with friends deepened when I wasn't constantly distracted by family drama. I even started dating someone who understood healthy boundaries and reciprocal relationships. David was amazed by my strength in cutting off toxic family members, having never imagined such courage was possible. 6 months after Uncle Robert packed that evidence box, my mother made one final attempt at reconciliation. She showed up at my apartment with Kelly, both carrying handwritten letters. "We're not here to ask for money," my mother said, her appearance dramatically changed by months of financial reality. "We're here to apologize for real this time." Kelly's letter was genuine, acknowledging specific actions and expressing real remorse. She was working full-time, attending community college, and building a life based on her own efforts rather than my funding. My mother's letter was more complicated, mixing real accountability with subtle manipulation. But for the first time, she used the word fraud to describe their financial actions and wrong to characterize their treatment of me. I accepted both apologies cautiously, maintaining firm boundaries while allowing limited contact. Kelly earned back some relationship through consistent honest behavior. My mother earned supervised interaction with clear financial boundaries. My father and Marcus never apologized genuinely, instead continuing to blame me for abandoning family. They remain cut off completely, living with the consequences of their choices. The most important lesson from this family drama true story is that love shouldn't require financial sacrifice, and family shouldn't justify abuse. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are actually exploiting you, and setting boundaries isn't cruel. It's necessary for survival. Uncle Robert taught me that real family supports your growth rather than draining your resources. Real love celebrates your success rather than seeing it as an opportunity for exploitation. Today I'm financially secure, emotionally healthy, and surrounded by people who value me for who I am, rather than what I can provide. My family got the space they asked for, and I got the freedom I never knew I needed. This Reddit revenge story isn't about revenge at all, it's about recognizing your worth and refusing to let anyone exploit you, even when they share your DNA. Have you ever had to set boundaries with toxic family members who saw you as a resource rather than a person? How did you find the strength to prioritize your well-being over their demands? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about overcoming family manipulation and finding your strength. Remember, you deserve relationships based on love and respect, not financial obligation. Your worth isn't measured by what you can give others. It's inherent in who you are. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise, especially family.